What just happened? Ken! What just happened?
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
But we're here together again.
Sure. We are here together again. Well, we're here together for the first time.
Here?
Yes. This is the Reverend Guitar Circle R Ranch.
I like the Circle R
Home
Ranch.
studio.
You know what? I got to tell you, I'm having a little bit of a guitar-gasm here. There's the full entree of your Savage 6-stringed renderings here, and they're giving me a magical feeling. My nostrils are flaring. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but when my nostrils flare, it's like I'm in guitar heat.
I think you like this one.
This is a sexy beast. There's no question about it. Oh, sorry. I just lanced you with this mighty Eastsider. I lanced the Haas.
We are here at the Reverend Guitar Circle R Ranch in sunny, beautiful Toledo, Ohio, where we have brought Mr. Greg over from sunny, beautiful Milwaukee.
Yeah, I got to tell you, one of the things I was very excited about coming, of course, to see you and rock out and so on and so forth. But the last time I was in Toledo, I was able to dine at an establishment which has long since disappeared from the Cheddar Curtain landscape, and that is the Big Boy restaurant.
Oh.
They still have Big Boys here, don't they?
We do have
Home
Big
of the
Boys.
Brawny Lad.
Yeah, the Brawny Lad.
Woo!
Yeah, that's the one on the dark bun with the
big old
onion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, side note, I cooked there when I was a wee lad.
So you know the secrets.
Yes, I do know the secrets. One of the big secrets is the special sauce on the Big Boy hamburger and the special sauce on the McDonald's Big Mac are exactly the same thing. We were next to McDonald's, and when the restaurants would run out, we would just go back and forth, and all it is Thousand Island dressing.
It's Thousand Island dressing, yeah,
exactly. But we had special sauce containers. Yes. But I used to wake up at 5 in the morning and go to Big Boy and cook bacon and sausage for an hour.
The Big Boy was a popular spot when we were kids. There was one right up the street from my house, and like Sunday morning, we'd go there. Oh, what's for dinner tonight? Oh, I didn't cook anything. Let's go to Big Boy.
The last time I was in Milwaukee for a gig, I ate at this walk-in burger establishment north of town that apparently there's a few of them around town, but unbelievable. Yeah. There's some seriously good food in Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably no wonder Big Boy couldn't hang.
Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, they couldn't stand it anymore.
LG, we still have Big Boys in Toledo, right? There's one over on Secor?
Yeah. Brawny Lad!
Woo! I'm not afraid to visit, but of course, Toledo is home of Tony Pacos, the sausages with the thing. You ever watch MASH?
Yes.
That's what we do here.
Klinger.
Corporal Klinger, yeah. Yeah, he comes in and throws out the first pitch for the Mud Hens game, opening game every year. And
Jamie Farr.
Jamie Farr, yeah. He's truly a Toledo legend. And he used to talk about the Tony Pacos sausages on the MASH shows. How did we get started on this? We're just talking about Toledo and Milwaukee now.
Well, that's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
You got to go with the food, first and foremost.
Of course. Well, it all starts without the food. Where are we?
Well, you're on the ground.
Yeah, or under it.
Well, there you go. Dirt napping.
Woo! So we're doing a little web show here live from Reverend. This is the first one, and I thought it might be kind of fun for us to get to know you a little better.
Yes.
Because people just know you as Greg Koch.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Cockery, schmockery, cock and pfeffer.
Well, it's a bizarre thing. There are people that know me from the Wildwood videos.
Yeah, which is where we met.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, like we've seen each other at shows and stuff, and that's do you know? Yeah, blah blah blah. And then one day at Wildwood, they threw us on camera together.
Yes, and the rest is history.
We've
probably done that 3 or 4 times now.
That's at least.
And then you brought in some other glorious Reverend signature artists, and we've had convivial conversations and jams with those individuals as well.
Yeah, but and more to come.
Yes.
More to come on that front. We've got to get you and Rick to sit down somewhere, whether it's here or there. I'd like to see the two of you guys together. And you and Pete, that would be a blast.
Oh, my God, yeah.
But, of course, we've had you play with Gil, who's a wonderful artist, who's a huge fan of yours, as well as you of him. What's your relationship with Gil Parrish? You guys have known each other for a while.
You know what? I would just encounter him at shows, kind of the same thing. And I knew he was a great player, and he's just a very nice guy. And then, but the only time we ever really got to sit down and play together for the first time was when we did those videos at Wildwood. And then I had the idea of doing a thing at this guitar festival in Minnesota, and I brought in Gil and Bernie Williams, and they played with my organ trio. It was fabulous. So anytime we get
Bernie
a chance
is a hell of a player, too.
Oh, man, he does that version of Take Me Out to the Ball game. I mean, where you think, really? You're going to do that song? And he does it, and he reharmonizes it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's truly something to behold.
Super cool guy.
Yes. You talk about a guy who likes to eat, too. We said,
yes.
I thought I was a feast master of the highest order. That guy's like, woo!
Well, he's burning a lot of. He's got that athlete's body still.
Exactly.
You know,
it's still going like a.
Yeah. He's a funny guy. My favorite meal of all time I've ever had was in New York City, in Little Italy, with Bernie Williams. And when you walk into a restaurant in New York City with Bernie Williams, everything stops.
Part.
Yeah. The C's part, like it was like something of a. It reminded me of that scene in Goodfellas when the restaurant's full,
right?
And then they make everybody move and put the table down. Like they did that for us in this restaurant, and then all the waiters just converged and they put like bottles down. What are you drinking? Oh, we're just gonna put a bottle of it down.
Right.
Yeah, oh no, they don't need to see menus. We're just gonna send food. It was really something. But yeah, Bernie's really cool, and this is a very cool thing that one person, really, actually, I hate that dude. Yes. I don't know how one dude can be like baseball Hall of Fame and be that good of a jazz guitarist.
Yeah,
I mean, not just like a guy who
skills.
picks up and shreds, but I mean, he really is an incredible all-around player, and it's really fun to see him.
His
play.
harmony game is strong.
It's very strong, and it's fun to watch him play with Gil because the two of them just
feed off each other.
Yeah, they really feed off each other. It's a really cool thing. So if you're in the Northeast, we're saying check out Bernie Williams.
Exactly, and Gil Paris together in tandem.
And then of course I brought Bob Balch to you.
Bob Balch!
And Bob just wails and can play anything. He's another guy that could just play anything.
Yeah.
He completely destroys the globe with Fu Manchu, but then he can sit down and just play anything you put at him. He's really
done his homework.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Great player. And Kyle and like I said, more to come. We'll have to continue that. So that's where we met.
That's correct.
In the Wildwood Lair.
Indeed.
And then you and I started hanging out a little bit and talking more and more. And you've expressed some interest in a couple of the Reverend guitars, and we have some of your signature Fishman Pickups.
Yes.
In one of our Eastsiders.
Yes, indeed.
Which you're going to be playing at our Summer NAMM Jam this year.
That's correct.
Which is going to be right. Hopefully, there's going to be some video and stuff leaked out from that.
Yes.
We're going to make sure there is. Yes. And so, but your pickups really have taken very well to the Eastsider. So,
absolutely.
How long have you been working with Fishman?
Fishman has been going on for about 4 years now, I believe, 4 or 5 years.
And you do a 2-pickup signature telly set.
That's correct. And they are called the Fishman Fluence Gristletone Pickups Telecaster.
Nice.
Yes.
And so what differentiates them from your standard tele thing?
I
want to hear.
Well, what's interesting about the whole thing is that I got contacted by Richie Fliegler, who is a guy I used to work with all the time with at Fender back in the day when I was doing a ton of clinics and all kinds of different stuff for them. And he now has his own independent marketing thing, and he called me up and he said, "Hey, I'm working with Larry Fishman." And I said, "Oh, Fishman, yeah, all the acoustic stuff, yeah, they're great, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, we're working on electric guitar pickups, and we thought we'd get you involved. And if you're, I was like, I got to be honest with you." I said, "I don't care about pickups." Well, because I'm the kind of guy, if I get a guitar and it sounds good, it's like, we're good. You know what I mean? I'm not taking stuff out a million times. But he did whet my appetite with the idea of a pickup that was truly noiseless, but sounded exceptional. There's always that. Oh yeah, they're noiseless, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, and I took back in the day, I was working with Bill Lawrence when he did a short period of time at Fender, and he was going to make me a signature pickup. And they're like, "Well, what do you want?" I said, "Well, I want a pickup that sounds like a single coil. I mean, doesn't kind of sound like it. Really sounds like, oh my God, this is a great sounding pickup, and is noiseless." I said, but it looks like a regular single coil pickup, because every time you get sometimes when you get a noiseless pickup, it looks like some kind of Frankenstein beast, And but not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you're playing a Telecaster especially, you want it to look like a Telecaster.
Of course.
And then I wanted some kind of incremental boost, not like extreme like a Clapton preamp or something like that, but just something where you press a button and it's just like a little beep. And so that turned out that's exactly what these pickups were able to do. So instead of having copper windings, yada yada.
Got it.
So basically it allows me to have, and what's great is we put them on that Eastsider, and I've got my custom shop Telecaster, and you play those two different guitars. They sound different, but they both sound really, really good.
Awesome.
And you go between the two, and I was like, yeah, there's a difference here, but Is it a $3,000 difference? I took that guitar out and treated it like a farm animal, the Eastsider at a gig, and it sounded.
I heard
it sounded magnifico.
Yeah,
And,
we were sent some video.
Yes,
That's the world we live in.
yes,
Yeah, yeah. I know what you're up to.
yes.
You know, whether or not I want to.
Well,
you
that's
know.
the way of the inner Google.
Yeah, it is the way of the inner Google. That's also the way of the Zach Ward who works here.
Yes.
He spends a lot of time on the inner Google, and then we hear, "Oh, you got to see this, dude! Come here, check it out.
Lurking.
Check it out." Yeah,
Yeah.
There it is. So, you know, we sit and talk. Well, this whole little adventure between us here is, of course, for us to sit and talk about Reverend gear.
Yes.
And Reverend guitars, and all these guitars that you see surrounding us are going to be in one of our or both of our laps at some point over the next few months.
Yes.
Right? But what I want to know is, I don't know anything about you before I met you at Wildwood. Not a thing. And at some point, you were a wee lad.
Yes.
And you saw a guitar somewhere.
Yes.
And you went, that's my destiny. What is that story? I want to hear that story.
Well, it's a tale that is sordid and fragrant. But actually, I started. I was the youngest of 7 kids. My brother was the oldest, and I was the youngest. There were 5 girls in between.
Is that the Wisconsin way?
It is. Well, it's the Church of Rome. What are you going to do? You know what I mean? And so my brother and I had to room together.
Okay.
And he was 14 years old, so he was like, oh, great. But because he went to high school I was born in 1966. He went to high school between 66 and 1970. So he had records indicative of somebody who was clued in.
Yeah.
And pop culture in that particular era. So I grew up listening to Hendrix and Cream and, you know, Stones and the Beatles and Hendrix and Cream and the James Gang and Mountain and all this kind of stuff. It was a very power trio-centric room, I got to be honest with you. And the guitar player in a power trio was a deity, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And to me, growing up, I mean, the guitar player in a rock and roll band was cooler than any sports figure, any movie star. I mean, they were literally the coolest people on the planet.
Sure. Of course.
And so that's what I wanted to be. And my brother, you know, I remember my friends and I would be out playing baseball or whatever. We'd come in my room, and my brother would be sitting there, you know, with his legs crossed in front of the stereo, listening to live Cream. I'd be like, what is that? And he'd go, Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker, and Eric Clapton, 3 of the greatest at what they do in the world, together making the greatest band of all time. Cream, and I'm like, oh my God. You know, it was almost like this religiosity to this stuff, right?
Yeah. Well,
So, and then for some reason, when I was really young, I gravitated towards Hendrix. For whatever reason, I would make them play the first side of Axis Bold as Love when I'd take a nap when I was a kid. And I did a report on Jimi Hendrix when I was in 3rd grade. And I would read all these details about all these people. So I knew all of, like, you know, who played what and where.
Your brother did he get like the fanzines and stuff?
Well,
too,
he didn't,
or?
but there was another neighbor that was equally Hendrix intoxicated and had like books and stuff, and I would glean these. And I remember doing an interview. I remember getting an argument with my 3rd grade teacher because we had to do a report on, whatever, a person we were interested in. And I did a report on Hendrix. He's like, well, you know what? He wasn't a very good person because he was a drug addict. And I said, well, let's be clear. It's not like he was on heroin or anything. I mean, he died what Marilyn Monroe died of, and she's still construed of as a, you know, and so I knew I was barbiturate intoxication. Okay, it could happen to anybody. So anyways, I was totally into this whole world of guitar deities and so on and so forth.
Did he give you a D?
I think it was frowned upon, but there were other things. I was kind of a hellion as a youngster, but be that as it may. So when I always wanted to play guitar, but the cello was the first thing offered.
Okay.
You know, and so I played the cello for a while, but, you know, I remember trying to figure out the song Easy Rider by Jim Hendrix on the cello, and that did not go well. So I quickly grew kind of tired of that particular instrument. So then after that failed attempt, then I think the band came around like in 5th or 6th grade, and then I switched to the percussion kit, and there was that. So by the time I was 12, I was like, forget it, I want to rock. So me and my buddies at school were like, let's form a band, and then we'll play at our 8th grade graduation. So I went to my dad, like, Dad, I got to get a guitar. And he's like, well, let's do a quick recap. We had the cello. That was a debacle.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, this is it. I really want to do this thing. And so I borrowed a guitar from a girl up the street, and she showed me how to play an A chord, you know, and the guy across the street taught me how to play a couple chords. And so I remember trying to figure out, you know, Clapton's version of Cocaine was big on the radio at that time. So I remember just sitting this A chord going. And I was sitting playing that all day long, and my dad's like, "What's going on with this kid?" You know, he's like, "All right, I'll get you lessons." He goes, "I have a client of mine who's a guitar player, and I'm going to set you up with lessons. The moment you come to a lesson and you're not prepared, it all ends." I'm like, "Okay." So I went in and I practiced. I made sure I would practice with my method book, you know, a half hour every night as my mom was cooking dinner. I'd put the timer on so she could hear me playing that, you know, Mary Had a Little Lamb or whatever. And then I'd be sitting at the record player trying to figure out all the other stuff. Yeah. So it just kind of went from there. The guy came to my dad like, you know, 6 months later and said, "I can't teach the kid anymore." And he's like, "He knows." So my dad could tell I was on it. So within 9 months, I played my first gig with my band, and I'd been gigging ever since. And then I just knew I wanted to play. So I did go to school for music. I really majored in beer, if we're honest. But
where did you go to school for
music? I
music?
went to the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. And the reason why I went there is because when I was in high school, I got this little scholarship to go to this jazz camp. And I went to this jazz camp, and the guitar teacher there was really, really cool. I mean, at that time, my embryonic stuff I was bluesy with some chicken picking and a little bit of jazz and rock, you know. But I was kind of a blues geek at that particular point in time. So when I went to this camp and I played a Telecaster, and the guy was like, he's like, "Hey, what you're doing is really cool, but if you wanted to jazz it up a little bit, you know, you could listen to this guy Larry Carlton or Robin Ford." So he turned me on to these guys, and he was very kind of inclusive because a lot of times, I hate to say it, but you know, jazz guys, especially in academic, can be like, it's a 175. ES-175 through a polytone, and you need flat wound strings or else you're a heretic. You know, he wasn't like that. He was very inclusive of what I was doing. So turns out he ran the jazz department at the school, which was very unusual to have a guitar player running a jazz department, let alone a guy that had an open mind. So I went there, and not because I wanted to be able to, you know, play every standard by heart and every, you know, and reharmonize it and all that other kind of stuff. I just wanted to be musically literate and be able to write and read and be able to play over changes and understand what it was to play over different chord changes. And that's what I learned. But I always wanted to have my own band. So I went back to Milwaukee. I lived up in Minneapolis for a little while, but went back to Milwaukee, started my own band. My first band I had for many years was called Greg Koch and the Tone Controls. And it was a trio where we did my own songs, and we all sang, and we got to be very popular in the area. And I just kept on trying to expand the horizon, and we would play at different showcases around the country and so on and so forth. But it was very difficult because it was
What year was this?
This is 1990 through like 94.
Okay.
And in that period of time, you know, our material was, it was bluesy, but it was rocky and funky and jazzy and chicken pickin-y. So basically impossible to categorize. So therefore, you know, every time we played a blues thing, "It's not blues." And every time we'd play a rock thing, "What is this blues crap?" You know what I mean? So it was one of those things. So one day this guy from Fender came in and saw our band and was like, would you be interested in doing clinics? And I'm like, "What is that?" "Well, we'd have you go out and kind of represent the company, and we'd help you promote the band." I'm like, "Fender? I mean, this is unbelievable." So my first clinic I did was down in Chicago at GAN Music in like 1994-ish. And I just found I had a knack for it. I could go in, play some tunes, and just get excited about gear and kind of talk how to get the sounds. And so Fender started using me to do stuff. At that point in time, I'd probably go out maybe 10 days out of the year, 2 weeks out of the year. Yeah. And the rest of the time I played with my band. I was doing sessions in Chicago, doing jingles and whatnot, and just kind of doing the do. Then we started having kids. And my wife was the primary, you know, she was making the real money, if we're honest. So I was Mr. Mommin', and I was playing with the band and doing, you know, as I said, maybe 2 weeks for Fender out of the year. And then my wife came home one day after, we had 2 kids at that point in time, and we were going to have our third. So this is around the year 2000. And she's like, "Listen, pal, I want to stay home with the kids for a while. So you need to fire up your game a little bit. So I can, even if it's for a year, I want to be able to stay home with the kids." I'm like, "I'm a musician in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So you want me to make what I'm already making now and then make what you're making so that we can subsist on, you know, this kind of activity?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, that's pretty much it." So, you know, after I sacrificed, you know, a small farm animal in a circle with a star in it, no, actually that didn't happen. But anyway, I ended up saying to the Fender people, like, "Hey, you know, if you want to ratchet this thing up a little bit, that'd be great." And they're like, "Yeah, well, we don't really do that." And but we want you to debut this new amplifier for us at NAMM. It's this new amp we got going called the Cyber Twin. We're going to send it to you and see what you think. And I'm like, okay. And then right around the same time, the Hal Leonard Publishing Company approached me about doing some stuff. And because they knew I'd been doing some Fender clinics, and they said, we would like you to help us revamp our guitar method, and as well as do some other stuff if you're interested. So they gave me a contract to do 2 books right off the bat, 2 videos right off the bat. And then I went in and I rewrote the original method with the original author.
Wow.
And it became it still is the #1 selling guitar method on the planet. So that was like totally out of the blue, kind of weird.
Yeah, like
here you go.
Here you go.
You want to make a living in music? Well, here's a few things. It was really bizarre.
Wow, that's fantastic.
And then I debuted this amp for Fender at the NAMM show, and I didn't know kind of the behind the scenes thing that some people had really put their neck out for this amp. They were supposed to stop doing it and not put it out because they didn't think it was going to sell, and so there were some people whose jobs were on the line. I didn't know any of this. So I went into the NAMM show, and they had sent me the amp like 5 days before the show. Like, oh yeah, learn it. And then
sure. Yeah, you got this.
Yeah, so I get it, and I
only has like
got young
100,000 presets.
Exactly, and I had young kids at the time, so I remember I went over to my sister's house one morning for like 3 hours, and I went through and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. You can take like a tweed bassman and add blackface reverb and maybe do a vibratone and assign it to the thing and do a wow. Hey, this is cool. There's no problem. So I came up with some presets that corresponded to some tunes that were bed tracks from tunes on my records,
Okay.
So I came up with a shtick, and then went out to California to do this thing, and it was a lot of tension. I'll never forget it. They had the marketing guy for amplifiers in there, and he was like reading the PowerPoints, and the people in the crowd from the higher ups were like, "You can't just do that. It has to be more than that. It has to be some excitement."
Yeah, right.
And finally, I raised my hand when things were really dire. I said, "Do you mind if I just take a stab at doing the whole thing?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead." So I was like, this is really cool. I mean, you can do this thing where you can do this thing, and this is really cool. I mean, it sounds like a bassman. You turn down the volume, it cleans up, you turn it up, and then you can put blackface reverb with a tweed bass. It's crazy. And then I played the song. They said, just introduce him and get off. So I had to do 7 of these shows a day, the half-hour shows a day, for the entire duration of NAMM, from Wednesday through Sunday, because we did all the international people on the Wednesday and the Thursday. And by Friday, they took me in a room and they said, this is the budget we have for you for next year. I'm like, we're good. I remember I called my wife. I go, we're good. You can quit. And she's like, I don't believe it. I go, well, believe it. And then the coolest thing of it all was Bill Schultz, legendary Fender. He comes up to me, he shakes my hand. If he even remembers your name, it was a big deal. Because then he puts his big mutton chop hand in mine. He's, great job, Greg. You're the talk of the show. I'm like, excellent. So that all and then Steve Vai's people, the A&R guy from his label was in the house, and they're like, we'd like to put out a compilation of your records on our new label, Favored Nations. I'm like, what? So coming out of NAMM, I had the Fender thing locked, the Hal Leonard thing was secured, and the Steve Vai thing all happened at the same time.
And so what year would that have been?
This has been 2001. Wow. So January of 2001.
Fantastic.
So all of that stuff kind of happened.
Yeah.
And then I remember my wife was like, by the time Isla, our youngest, who was just born, by the time she's 6 months old, I want to be able to stay home. So on the beginning of the 6th month, I handed her the keys to our new minivan, and I said, I'm going to be gone for a month because I had to go off and tour and do whatever else. She's like, okay, see ya. And that was that. So my career from then, and then like a year later, I got a deal on a different record label over in Europe that was more interested in my more vocally oriented bluesy stuff, and that started tours over in Europe where I would go with the band and tour.
And you're still doing that.
I'm still doing all of that. So it just kind of worked from there. And then what was interesting is that the Fender thing. People for years were like, oh, you're the Fender guy, and I was like, I was never employed by Fender. I mean, and to be honest, it worked to my advantage for a long time because I talked to all these different tangential partners with Fender all over the world, different distributors and so on and so forth. So I was never a number on a ledger saying exactly what I was making, and so they couldn't go, well, we need to get rid of that. It was like, well, this guy pays me over here, this guy pays me over here. So I was never yanking too much on one spigot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So I was able to maintain this thing with Fender. Of course, it was a little scary because I had to, all of a sudden be like, well, we're going to use you for 3 weeks in April, and then, in the middle of March, like, well, it's actually more like 5 days. And you're like, boom, 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 boom. But it worked out enough where it all kind of panned out until my kids started to get a little older. And then finally I said to the Fender folks, like, you know what, I've never asked you guys for like a retainer or anything like that. It's getting about that time. And the guy's like, well, I'm surprised you haven't asked sooner. I was like, well, kids approaching college and stuff like that. And it just never happened. And then they sold the company to different people, and things got weird. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a call from the Fender rep in the Colorado area and said, remember that store in Colorado you did a Fender clinic at, Wildwood? I was like, oh yeah, Steve, yeah, great place. Well, he's thinking about doing this thing where you do videos, and each company, because initially his idea was to have all the different manufacturers send their guy out and have different experts from each one of these companies do their thing. And so I said, sure, so Fender flew me out there and Steve paid me, or I can't remember what happened for the first time, but I remember I went in there and we went down in the lair.
The lair.
And I plugged in and Steve gave me he's like, basically just play the guitar, talk about, how it sounds, play the different pickups on it, maybe clean with dirty, maybe a few styles, whatever, and take it from there. I'm like, okay, cool. So camera starts. I go, hey, how's it going? I play a little bit. I was like, boy, this sounds great. I get done with one video, and Steve stands up and he walks right up to me. He goes, can I hire you to do this? I was like, what do you mean? I'll fly you out here every month to shoot these videos. I go, you mean kind of like a job? He's like, exactly. So I would go out there first initially a couple days I'd go out there 2 days a month. Yeah. And I was just doing Fenders at that point in time. But again, as this Fender thing got more loosey-goosey and they were uncommunicative, and I was still doing stuff with the overseas people, but I was totally getting ghosted by the USA guys. So one day I was playing a Les Paul, and Steve was hearing me, because I play, you play different on different guitars.
Sure, of course.
And he's like, man, I could sure use you a lot more if you'd play these other instruments. I'm like, yeah. So I called up the Fender guys. I was like, hey, you know what? Everyone plays different guitars. You guys really aren't using me that much. I don't think it really pees in the pool to have me play these other instruments for Wildwood. I mean, we're still doing Fenders, and he's your biggest independent custom shop dealer on the globe.
Right.
We have no problem with it. So then I started going out there. Actually, at that point, I was going out there 6 days a month. Now we've scaled it back to 4 days a month, and it's still a glorious thing. So and that was 5 years ago or so, 5-6 years ago. So that was, and I have to say, of all the stuff I've done over the years, and then I got hooked up with Fishman, as I said, shortly thereafter. But doing the stuff for even, and then I was doing different things for different guitar magazines. I had columns in different magazines that would run, and the books and the video. Anyways, so all of that stuff combined, I made a decent living, and it was fun, and so on and so forth. It pales in comparison to how many people have seen those Wildwood videos. It's insane.
It is the number. I tour in one of my bands, and not a lot. Well, I tour in two of my bands. One of them is sort of a one-off festivals, and another one, we'll do multiple club dates, and we'll go out and maybe do 9 or 10 club dates in a row or whatever. And it is the number one thing people talk to me about. And people talk to me about the stuff you and I have done there all the time. And that 12-string video that we shot there, the video for the Airwave where we played the Yes song. People, I can't even tell you the number of times people come up to me and like, oh, I love those videos with you and Greg. Oh, that video where you guys were playing with Starship Troopers. Oh my God, that video is so great. And but it's a blast. It's such a super relaxed atmosphere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're all really good people out there. I mean, obviously,
absolutely.
Reverend is super excited to have them as a dealer and have been for the last 8 years. So I started shooting video out at Wildwood with Pete Anderson and the serial number videos.
Right.
So and that was just a little before you started doing so much out there. But the serial number video thing is really a cool thing. It's a neat idea. And we were talking about my Sir Wildwood Drip guitar.
Yes.
And I have like your video playing that guitar sort of like saved in my favorites because it's just kind of fun that, you got all of us like guitar playing nerds that have bought guitars from them have that thing like, oh, that's my guitar. And here's like a video of Greg playing my guitar. And it's like this like goofy thing, but it's fun. It's fun. It's just really been a really cool concept. And we took Pete, we did Reverend's first custom run was with with them was Orange Pete Anderson's.
Aha.
And they got a whole bunch of them, and Pete came out, and Pete sat and played the videos and read off the serial numbers of all of them, and then we did it with Reeves, the original Reeves model, and the really cool one, the one that stands out in my mind the most is we did Unknown Hinson out there.
Yeah.
And this is a really cool story. The King, up until that point, we had been working with him for like 4 years, had never broken character around me. And all of the business that we did with him, we did through his wife, R.I.P. Great lady, Margot, back then. And we would see him at shows, and we brought him to the NAMM shows and stuff, and I would be like, hey man, you need a cup of coffee? Can I get you something to eat? Blah, blah. Well, you know, I'll only eat soft foods and eat with straw, you know, and I'd be like, okay, dude, you know, like it was awesome, is what I mean. It was amazing, because I was like a huge fan of the guy's playing and the guy's shtick and everything, and I just thought it was wild that this. So when Steve wanted to have him come out to Wildwood, I'm like, this is going to be great. And I go to meet Danny Baker at the airport, and we met at the Detroit airport and then flew to Colorado. He came up from Raleigh. And I was waiting at the gate for his plane to come in from Raleigh. And I'm standing there waiting for Unknown Hinson to get off the airplane, because that's all I knew.
Right.
And he got off and walked right by me. I didn't even recognize him. He turned around and he hits me on the shoulders like, Ken, how you doing? And he, full white hair. He had been off the road for like 6 months, and his hair had grown out. He didn't have the stuff on or anything like that. And he was like, hope you don't mind, but I was thinking about maybe doing these interviews as Danny Baker and telling the story and stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah. Because he had never broken character anywhere before. And so we went down, and he and I sat in the Wildwood Lair, and I talked to him about being Unknown Hinson and how he developed the character and all that stuff. And it was such a cool thing. Yeah. Such a, like, for his fans, too. So that's another one. Like, people talk about that video all the time, because it was just such an interesting thing for him to do. Right. It's such an interesting place for him to decide to do it, you know, along with, but he's super proud of his guitar, as are we. You know, it's a fantastic playing and sounding instrument. So very, very cool thing to do. Well, I mean, we appreciate you doing this series with us. I mean, this is going to be a fun little thing. Basically, what you have to look forward to in the upcoming shows of this is we're each going to grab a Reverend, and I don't know if sometimes they will be worked together by design or be completely different instruments from completely different things. But Greg and I are each going to have a guitar, and we're going to play a little bit and talk a little bit about them. They're not all going to be this long, for crying out loud. But we're going to talk a little bit about a bunch of the Reverend instruments from across the line and stock instruments, some new things coming out, maybe sneak in a new color or a new model here and there. But most of it's just going to be about sort of what the core of our business is. And we appreciate you joining us to do this.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't we play?
Yes.
Because that seems to be a thing. I
like this rock music.
Yes. Everybody likes the rock music. And I am, of course, I am in full rock and roll mode. I have a bridge pickup.